I'm Dan, and this is 10,000 Hours of Indie, a podcast exploring new music and delving deeper into what goes on in the background of the independent music industry. I'm a musician and passionate music lover, and I wanted to delve deeper into new music in the independent scene around the world. I also saw this as a chance to help artists connect and share their stories, so if there's someone you hear and you want to find out more about, every podcast has links in the show description. Get involved, help this community grow, follow on the 10,000 Hours of Indie socials, you can find all the links in the show description. And also feel free to email me about anything music related, 10,000indie@gmail.com. I'm open to any ideas and love listening to your promos. Founded in 2005, the Grownup Noise are a four-piece indie folk band from Boston, Massachusetts. Their music has appeared on NPR, MTV, Netflix, and in independent films, and the band have shared a stage with Counting Crows and Amy Mann, amongst others. Comprising of Paul Hansen on lead vocals, guitar and keyboards, Adam Sankowski on bass and backing vocals, Katie Franich on cello and backing vocals, and Kyle Crane on drums. They are due to release their sixth album, No Straight Line in the Universe, on February the 6th, which also marks the return of the original lineup. It's a great album which I've been enjoying listening to, and I wanted to find out more. So, Paul, the songwriter and frontman, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much, Daniel. Thanks for having me on here.
The Grownup Noise is a very playful name. How did you get to that?
The band actually started as a duo, just Adam and I playing, literally open mics and whatever we could get. I don't know, we were just having trouble coming up with a name. So we literally just started writing words down on a paper. And I think we saw like a the and a grown up and a noise. And then I think after that, we started coming up with our own meanings. Like, for me, it was like when I was in my college beforehand, I was in like a noise band. For me, it's like Sonic Youth was like my experimental youth. And then this is kind of like a more grown up sound that's noise. And then Adam played a lot of drums when he was like a tiny kid in the kitchen on pots and pans. So for him, he's doing that older. But it's been really funny to see how everybody has a different take on the name. So we're cool with everyone's take. And then also, I think over time, the meaning for me, the Grownup Noise is almost something to rebel against, which is just, I don't know, cynicism or just the stress of money. It's kind of like keeping Grownup Noise at bay. But it's so funny because then some people are like, oh, the Grownup Noise, huh? So people thought it was like, I don't know, sexual noises. And then some people thought it was a reference to the Peanuts, like that cartoon, how they taught the adults are like, wah, 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 wah. So we're fine with everyone having their own understanding of the name. So maybe that's what you mean by playful. Did you have like a thought that came to mind?
Well, actually, there's a band from America who I brought over to Finland called Grown-Up Avengers Stuff.
Oh, wow, nice.
So I'm thinking along sort of those kind of lines
Sure.
of it just being fun and, grown-ups making noise rather than kids making noise. So,
Exactly.
When a kid's running about screaming, this is the adults running about doing the same thing, but in a grown-up way.
Exactly, yep.
So what are your influences as a band? You mentioned on Instagram Guided by Voices in one of your posts, but otherwise, do you all have similar tastes, and what are they?
That is a great question. I think we are in the same solar system for sure. I think Adam and I are really close just because we were kind of, we went to Berklee College of Music in Boston, we were there during a heavy jazz age. So we were kind of forced to learn jazz, which was good for us, but we were kind of into more like, I guess, indie rock stuff, this band Stars from Canada. So we were kind of really enjoying all this underground music while we were getting our ass kicked learning jazz all day. And then Katie came from really open-minded classical background. She played in a lot of orchestras with cello, but she had an ear for songwriting and pop music. And then Kyle actually was definitely metal drummer and jazz drummer. And then later on, he got into like the writing of parts. But I would say for me, it was like, I don't know, the things that kind of got me into singing, because I was a guitar player first for like 20 years, never sang. I think it was a little bit of Nick Drake, Velvet Underground, Vic Chestnut, this songwriter from the South of America, and then Guided by Voices, more of the garage rock. Guided by Voices being just that dream of finding that gem catchy nugget in a lo-fi landscape of crap. Like, I don't know. And also just, I went to school in Ohio and my wife's from Dayton, Ohio. So there's so much kind of romance in my mind to the Guided by Voices, just that underground garage psychedelic band that stumbles on amazing melodies and lyrics. So that's kind of kept me going. But yeah, to answer your question, I would say we have similar tastes, even though when we started, especially Kyle being more like metal and jazz, we were different. But I guess we've kind of landed a little closer together.
Your music offers a nod to the past while still sounding fresh and having something to say. Not many bands sound like you anymore. Why do you think that is?
Wow, thank you very much. 'Cause that's how I feel. Because even though I'm 50, I feel like I don't relate to a lot of, I don't know, musicians my age necessarily. The ones that are stuck to the stuff they love, which is great, like the stuff that that we all grew up with. I like to think I have one foot or one ear out to newer music. Like, I don't know, I absolutely love hip hop and rap, all styles of music. So I don't feel any allegiance to any style. And I feel like that's kept the sound young, even though, like you said, I think we do have kind of a grounded Americana sound as well. So maybe it's like a bit of a half Americana sound. And then we're still trying to experiment with it, with the cello, with our orchestrations of the songs. We're trying to keep an open mind.
I think for me, the reason I really enjoyed your sound so much, and I did delve a little bit into your back catalogue as well, was I get this sort of, there's almost a Decemberists feel about
what you're doing. Yeah, same, me too. I remember when I forget, it was that like kind of concept album they did. I forget what it was called, but I remember when that song Valencia came out, my jaw just dropped. It was just so, the imagery was so sharp, and it was as catchy as anything I had heard on top radio. You know what I mean? So it had this literary aspect, which I like, and it was just so catchy. Like that's cool. So yeah, I'll take it.
This is the first album with the original lineup for 14 years. What brought you all back together again?
That is the question. Well, Adam, the bass player, and I mentioned we started as a duo. He definitely burnt out because he was doing a lot of the business stuff. We were independent the whole time. We did get some help, and we've had a manager and a booking agent at the very end. So Adam eventually got a little bit of help. But I think he burnt out, and it felt like kind of run its course. And then also Katie had moved away and been studying linguistics, which now she's a PhD linguistics professor. And then, we just kind of enjoyed our regular lives. We'd occasionally play for fun. We stayed as friends. They were nice enough to let me keep the name since I was the only songwriter. But then when word got that Katie was moving back to town, I think Adam was excited and so was I. And it's like, what if we just like get together a little bit? So in my mind, I'm like, oh my gosh, we can totally get together and start playing. We'll just hang out and play and see what happens. And so we just started playing on every Thursday night. We'd get together. Sometimes we wouldn't even play. We'd just drink wine and hang out. And then we started playing a little more. And now we have an album out. And now we have to do go through the motions and the cycles of releasing an album, which is, I forgot how much work that is. But it basically came from the hang.
Often when I do the initial research about the band, I start asking AI about the band. And it brought up a little bit saying that you used to tour in a veggie oil van. Is that true? And if you did, that was way before it was cool to do that kind of thing, I assume.
Yep, that was all Adam. He saw there was a couple other bands doing this band Piebald, who was from Boston, and then there was a couple other bands. And so that was definitely high concept and very difficult practically. But there was one summer where the gas prices were super high, and we did not pay for gas that whole summer tour, which was amazing. But it was so difficult because we'd have to go to these restaurants and convince them to let us take and filter their used vegetable grease. Some restaurant owners were like, "This is the coolest thing I've ever heard of," and then some were like, "Get out of my establishment! I don't know what you're talking about." It got so stressful to the point where, in the end, we would just show up with our gear on, with gloves and smocks, and just be like, "Hey, we're here to pick up the grease," and they wouldn't. So we didn't have to have the conversation. So things got a little sketchy just because it was so hard to do. But we absolutely did it, and we smelled like French fries and Thai food and chips, but yeah, we did it. It was crazy. But then we also had some terrible leaks. The band had some leaks, and we had some horror tour stories because of it.
I can imagine you and the rest of the band turning up looking like extras from Breaking Bad.
Yes. Oh my gosh, no one's mentioned that. That's really funny. Yep.
So on to the release. No Straight Line in the Universe sounds like quite a timeless album, but is full of nostalgia in both the music and lyrics. Song themes from high school memories to moving through life lace the album with moments the listener can connect with. Tell me some more about what you were trying to convey when you wrote the album.
I would say it's exactly that. Like it's the album, I would say, encompasses kind of, the first time. I forget that Camus quote where it's like everyone, it's everyone's purpose is to find that thing that first opened their heart, or then you get to Bukowski, how he says, find the thing that you love and let it kill you. So I feel like it spans, in my mind, the lyrics and the stories span from the beginning of music to me until now. And I would say a central part of it also was, I don't come from a creative family, but my great grandmother, oddly enough, was super creative. She died really young in childbirth, giving birth to my grandmother, who survived, obviously. But my great grandmother died. And anyway, she wrote all these poems and wrote songs and was a painter. And I didn't know this just because I come from everyone's more into athletics and newspapers. There just wasn't a lot of art in my family. And I found a few poems from my great grandmother. And then I wrote a song, one of the songs on the album. And actually that's who's on the cover. That's Blanche Marie on the cover. I wrote a modern song, to her lyrics. At first I tried to write in the style of early 1910s. I was listening to music that she might've been writing and playing, and it just didn't work. So then I just kind of superimposed my sound onto it, and then it works. And then Katie in the band kind of mentioned that fits with the title too, because the No Straight Line being that you have my great grandmother, and then the artistic line just zigzags into nothing and then lands on me randomly a couple generations later. So that was really inspiring to me. And then also to find, I have it up on my wall here, one of her rejection letters. She was actually trying to sell poetry and songs. And the rejection letter reads like something today, like, maybe we'll use it. If we use it, we'll send you the $5. We'll see. And I'm sure she probably never heard anything after that, but it was just enough to be excited. I feel like it's very much a complete kind of life-spanning album for me. And then a lot of the other songs have other personal stories, but that one I think is the central one. And that, and also just a reconnection album, a reconnection with Adam and Katie and Kyle. So it's a bit of a family album, real family and chosen family.
Which song did you find on this album was the most challenging to bring to life the way you intended?
That is a great question. I would say either Rabbit Hole or Where's Kay, just because Rabbit Hole is a bit of the harmony is a little bit strange, and there's an odd meter section, and I just didn't know what that would sound like, or would it sound too jazzy, or would it sound too this or that. But of course, again, with Adam and Katie and Kyle and Todd, who plays a little bit of keys on it too, they just added the perfect touch to kind of keep our sound cohesive instead of it being like, oh, here's a fusion jazz track by the Grownup Noise. Like, their sound on it, I think, helped it stay in-house. That was a strange experience. And then I think Where's Kay, just because I was like, okay, I want it to be a bossa nova that transfers into like synth dream pop. So I didn't want that bridge to be cringe between those two. So I think we pulled it off, but that was a strange, because that song is kind of like two songs mashed together, but I think the bridge between the two works, I hope.
The band co-produced the album with Dan Cardinal, who was engineered for the Low Anthem in the past. What did he bring to the making of the album?
So much. I think he also, we were all on the same page creatively. I feel like before we even got started in each session there, he'd kind of play us a record or something he was into just to see where he was coming from. And that was always eye-opening. I feel like I had a wonderful slow burn with Dan too, because I worked with him on a few other projects. And then by the time we got to this one, I think we both felt confident, and I think he felt confident, really adding a lot of input on this one. And that's a lot for me and us to kind of let happen. Usually I can be very much a solo cook in the kitchen, obsessive type on the parts. It was nice with Dan because his suggestions and his vision is so awesome. It's like, you know what? Go ahead. Let's try that. So I feel like the evolution between the two of us came at a perfect time for us to feel comfortable with his suggestions, just a little thing here and there. And then obviously when he did the mixing, we're like, go ahead, send us what you got. We won't be over your shoulder. So he was absolutely amazing. But, he works with so many different artists and can get so many different sounds. I mean, he is just a beast.
Have you got an example of something that you took to him that he went, why don't you do this? And your mind just went, oh yeah, no, that's it.
So maybe some more subtle things, probably like on a song like Change Your Mind, we tracked my vocals 5 times and he did like this panning thing where there's like the center me and then there's 2 other me's doubling it. So it sounds like it's a double, but it's actually like a quadruple, but it's a subtle thing. Because since I have such a subtle baritone voice anyway, but it has all this kind of hidden back end power. So he just kind of gave this spectrum to my vocals that we never would have thought of, or just like a little harmony line, like Katie singing this background line in We Become Roses. That was just kind of a last minute, like she's in the vocal booth and he's like, hey, why don't you sing this part? And then obviously what he did with Rabbit Hole was just massive. It just sounds like you're in an airlock, or it just sounds like you're in outer space in that song. So I would say a lot of small things. We still came in with the songs pretty much figured out and a lot of opinions, but those small things he added were huge.
So it's pick your favorite child time. What's your favorite track on the album?
Maybe Rabbit Hole, just because it feels so different. I feel like the lyrics are poetic enough. The harmony is experimental enough, but stays catchy, stays in a pop indie home, even though all the windows are open to constant structure harmony and just more like jazz harmony, but it stays home. So I think, so Rabbit Hole for the experimentation, but I suppose my heart is with Plaything, because that's the poem of my great-grandmother. So that...
Okay, I didn't know the background of that one. Plaything is actually my favorite. So.
Oh, wow. Well, that's the Plaything that's Blanche Marie's lyrics. So I didn't alter the lyrics at all. So that's really cool to hear. So I think my heart is with Plaything and my brain is with Rabbit Hole.
I've got a question about the album cover, which you've now said is obviously your grandmother. What gets me about the album cover is it has the picture of, now I know, your grandmother, while it's got very modern, clean, stylized writing over the top. How did you come up with that idea?
Well, we didn't come up with that. That was our friend Gina Gray.
Gina Gray.
Known her forever. We went to school in Ohio together. And she has been a designer and a graphic designer her whole life. And so once we decided on the image of Blanche Marie, it was like obvious in my mind, oh, let's bring this image to Gina because she'll treat it just right. I know, isn't it amazing? Like I love how she did the colors and then how the writing is over her face, but it's not a problem. So, I mean, that's only safe in some artists' hands.
So onto social media. You're a similar age to me, so you're a band that started out before the internet dominated everything. Yes. How do you feel about social media?
It's super depressing, but it's also a way to keep in touch with people. So I think it's a giant mixed bag. Sometimes it's poop in the bag, and sometimes it's a rose. This is a cop-out, but I feel like jury's out what social media means to us. I'm a little jealous though of bands now, because when we were touring a ton in the early, like in the 2000s, we were using MapQuest. This was even, before smartphones and before even good GPSs. So we're using MapQuest to get places, and there was just so much downtime. The one thing that is cool about social media now is if we were on the road, we could be sharing a bunch of funny incidental videos with fans, enjoying the downtime of it and keeping in touch with everybody, as opposed to just these shows. So it's too bad that all those, we had some amazing shows and some terrible shows, but none of it's really documented because there wasn't a quick way to film or share it online. So it would have been kind of cool to have that more documented. That being said, it was quite romantic that it wasn't, but it's just funny. So it kind of, when things started to slow down with the band, then the social media thing erupted. And I think that would have helped us, but it was a bit too late.
You seem fairly good at posting updates on Instagram, though, which is something, it's the regularity that really keeps people informed, isn't it? And means that people can still see things.
Thanks. Yeah, I'm trying to get better at that. I feel like some people are way better than me or than us at that. It seems like that seems to be a good spot, to find bands or to find art. So I'm trying to get better at that.
So I had written a question about not being able to find any music videos from recent times, but by the time this podcast episode is out, there will be one for Change Your Mind, I understand.
Yep, we did kind of a lo-fi video for We Become Roses. I think it's probably mostly on our Facebook page, although I got to load that into Instagram too. But yes, what we worked with this amazing animator, Andrew Rousseau, and they did a beautiful cartoon story. We wrote like a little story together to go with the song. So it's exciting. So that's kind of the last single that comes out before the album. So hopefully that'll be fun, and that'll kind of carry us to the release show and then to the full album.
So on to live shows. You played a few shows last year, including being part of a seriously good lineup at the Green River Festival. How was that?
That was incredible. And it's such an amazing festival that's been going on forever. And the festival has evolved with the tastes in music. And I feel like what they're doing there with that festival is kind of the impossible, because they're bridging together so many different styles. They have to keep a lot of people happy. And I feel like they're doing that. So it felt incredible to be part of it. It felt really validating. And it was just super fun, just exciting to be, an artist and to be able to go behind to the artist trucks and eat the food and drink the beers with the famous people. So it was very validating. The kind of gig where you're like, that can keep me inspired for 2 years.
You have an album launch party on the 7th of February, but otherwise, do you have anything planned on the live front? I assume it's a little tricky as Kyle lives in California now.
Yes.
And tours with other bands.
So we have a couple drummers that we've kind of just been hiring to play with us when Kyle can't play with us around the Boston area, which is cool. But yeah, we miss him. But, he's the one that's actually, on the road full time with amazing artists. And it's like, we're just, psyched to still be really good friends with him, and psyched that he comes back to record with us. But he's on the road full time. But I think after the release show, we're definitely going to get to New York, maybe DC, maybe Philly, and then just play locally. So I don't know if we're going to go to LA and back again, although it was nice to play in LA this past summer. I think we made the agreement that we should at least play LA once a year, because we have so many friends out there and Kyle's out there. Keep playing Boston and hit New York. So again, it may not be as many shows as we'd like, but thankfully where we are here, there's a few places we can kind of scoot out to and do a, kind of little mini 2-3 day tours.
So the final question, what music are you listening to at the moment that listeners of the podcast may not be aware of and should take some time to check out?
I guess sometimes when I go on my walk, I'm listening to a lot of hip hop, like going back to Mad Villain. I love Mr. Liff is a rapper from the Boston area. Go back to Big Thief often and enjoy them. I think Aldous Harding I like. I think she might have a new release coming out, because I think she's going to be like touring again. And then I guess I've been getting in a little bit to this band Geese, which is kind of like like a noise jam band. But they just have this kind of youthful energy that's pretty awesome. I don't know. Don't sleep on classical music, because I feel like it's a great, if I'm ever in a rut, I just, listen to like some Chopin or some of the more impressionist, like Debussy and stuff. And it's just great. Or Aaron Copland. And I go through that phase. And then when I come out of it, I find myself just kind of, when I hear indie or songwriting stuff again, I'm just fired up again. So I'm a bit all over the place. So I'm probably not helpful as to this is the band you should listen to. But the only thing I would encourage is just to listen to everything. Just go, you don't have to go uncomfortable places, but just get out of your wheelhouse.
I like the fact you mentioned classical, because not very many people do, and I'm a massive fan of going out to the music halls and seeing the proper classical shows.
Oh, it's wonderful. It's wonderful, and it just shows you how massive music is, and just how many ways you can communicate. Humans can communicate with this music. I love it, especially just when you've kind of listened to maybe too much of your own thing.
So for anyone wishing to find out more, you have a website, thegrownupnoise.com, and you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, YouTube, and Bandcamp. I'm sorry, you're the first band that's admitted to being on Twitter.
Right. We were on there, and so we just kind of left it on there. I know there's not like a ton going on there musically, but it's like, it seems these days it almost seems harder to get rid of an account. So we're like, we'll just, throw up whatever's on there. Because there was a time when Twitter was awesome. And also your feed wasn't curated with whatever they're trying to advertise to you. It was just the pure feed of the people you follow. So there was obviously it's never going to be like that again, but there was a cool time many, many, many years ago at the very beginning of this whole social media thing.
There's also a pretty extensive Wikipedia page on the band for anyone who wants to delve really deep.
That was probably we probably went a little overboard, but it was like, that was kind of like we had a friend who wrote it who, was a big fan of the band and was a good writer. That was nice, especially when things were really starting to slow down, like we were talking about before social media. So there's all the stuff that wasn't documented. So it was nice to at least get our journey documented before we all disappeared and had kids.
So No Straight Line in the Universe is out on February the 6th on all streaming platforms and CD and vinyl, I assume via your Bandcamp.
Yeah, the hard copy stuff, you can, if anyone reaches out to me personally or to us on Instagram or our main page, or even just through email or Facebook, I can definitely get a hard copy out to you. But then obviously on Bandcamp as well.
Perfect. Well, Paul, thank you for filling me in on some of the gaps. It's been a pleasure.
Yeah, Daniel, this has been awesome.